Hey everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. All that good stuff. My name is Scott, the proprietor of the Future Conflict Channel. Today we're talking, what are we, 481, I think it is. We're talking Israeli War Round 2 and question mark and peace in the wings. And of course, we're talking there about Russia and Ukraine. God, I would love to get that war over with. I'm kind of tired of it. But sadly enough, that's the length of that war has been, pretty much the rise of this channel. So I guess I should, count myself lucky. All right. Yeah. Watcher's gotten some computer issues going on. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But Joe, you're on the road now, aren't you?
I am.
Of course, your phone decides to start having connection problems when you say hello.
Oof.
Yeah. Watch. We got you, Joe. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. We had a great class. Met a lot of our fans and a lot of Twitter mutuals. Get out there and meet each other in real life. But a suggestion was made there that at some point in time on the show, we used the song AK-47 Wale as a transition during the show. And from the album Straight Outta Khalistan, and I'm making up 0% of that. And I think they're right. And if you didn't know that Indian rap was good, you need to check out that song. So.
Well, I am going to. I don't know. I've heard it. I'm not a fan, but hey, I just because I don't appreciate it doesn't mean it's not good.
Well, it is a feature at Camp Ponderosa, so you just gotta have to adjust.
Right? It's all about.
Anyway, we got out and played in the woods with the guys day and night, and there was a bayonet killing during the course. That will teach you a lesson. Don't try to take me as a prisoner. It doesn't go well. But the students learned a lot, and we incorporated drone and anti-drone technology into the class now. So pretty cool. Get out and take the Scout and Recce course. Get out and take my Fieldcraft course, and come join us.
Very good. Yeah, there was such a lot of content popping up on X over the weekend from the course, so that's always awesome to see. So I'm glad you guys had a good weekend. Watcher, how you doing, brother? And now, Watcher,
doing good. Just up bright and early on a good Monday morning and ready to get rolling, man.
Before we jump into the odds and ends, guys, we got some good news. We got two pieces of good news. We got Kash Patel is going to be not only is he going to be the director of the FBI, but he's also going to be the interim director or acting director of the ATF, which bodes well for,
gives you a hint what's to come.
Yeah. And then on top of that, if that wasn't enough winning in federal law enforcement, then Dan Bongino has been nominated to be the deputy director or assistant director.
Yeah, that one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not like unhappy or anything, but that one is it's hitting me a little odd.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? Guys like Dan Bongino and Donald Trump, for example, they actually lose money when they do this. So, you can't say that they're not kind of coming from a position of service. So I'm happy about that for that reason.
Sure. And maybe I'm missing something because I'm not a Bongino follower. Maybe I'm just missing a law enforcement background, investigatory background.
Secret Service.
Dan Bongino was a Secret Service agent.
Was he?
Vice Presidential Detail.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then he did something else too, and I can't remember. That was law enforcement, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh, okay, cool. So qualified then.
Yeah, he was local law enforcement in Florida. So
that's what it was. It was a cop in Florida. And then,
that was the part that my brain that I didn't know about, and so I was like, Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Well, that's why Dan Bongino was like the media go-to guy after the assassination attempt. He was an actual pundit that actually knew what the hell he was talking about. All right. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy about that, guys. Just when my eyes start to glaze over with all the winning, and it's like sometimes when winning is esoteric, it's hard for me to kind of say, "Oh, well, great, we're winning," but ultimately, I know it's all good. I like these kind of ones that I can actually sink my teeth into, right? As far as understanding how it's going to make a real difference for us. So I'm really looking for, NYPD is what Robert Ramones said. All right. So, and one other thing, kind of the opposite of people getting hired, is what was it? Joy Reid.
Yeah.
I mean, my question, guys.
The Joy Reid show is going to be this week.
My question, guys, is what are all the conservative pundits going to do when they don't have clips of Joy Reid's show to kind of like make fun of?
No, listen, I want to congratulate Joy Reid on her new status. We know that everyone on the left believes that UBI is a great way to give people free time to pursue their hobbies. Now, that's Joy Reid has plenty of free time to pursue her racist hobbies.
Well, maybe if she learns to code, she can get a job with Doge. I hear they're hiring.
Yeah, I'm just shocked to find that being a insane leftist who is willing to screech racist at the left's opponents is no longer a paying position. That's cool.
Peter States Helicopter Tours for $5 says, now that Dan is the deputy director of the FBI, Future Conflict can now have the top morning slot with sponsors, ? Bongino was a NYPD cop, and he wrote a similar book to Kash Patel's Government Gangsters. Yeah, I am just all in all, I'm very happy about a lot of the moves that are being made. Excuse me, guys. Sorry, I'm tapering off as you guys are waking up. So I apologize. All right, let's look at anything else you guys want to hit before we jump into the odds and ends.
I do just want to say Sol's got the right point of it here. She will just get a shitty podcast. That's welcome, Ken.
Well, what she won't do is she won't have an audience.
Well, I mean, nothing's changed.
Yeah, well, correct. Okay. I'm looking for her having lower numbers than us.
Well, we'll see about that.
Oh boy! All right.
I do have to say though, in relation to something somebody else says here, I don't know if Pam Bondi sucks or not. I will say that I heard that the Epstein client list was on her desk waiting for release several days ago. And that's the last I heard about it. So,
and it's probably the last you'll ever hear about it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump right into the odds and ends, shall we? Gentlemen, if you remember, I wanted to front load this one because if you remember back to Friday's show in the odds and ends, we discussed the 3 Chinese ships that were going into the middle, basically the body of water to the southeast of Australia or east of Australia, in between New Zealand and Australia. Well, so a couple hours after the show, it starts coming out over the news that the Chinese are basically going to do, like right in the middle of Australia's backyard, they're going to start just doing live fire drills. And they had to reroute planes in flight going between Australia and New Zealand in order to make this happen. So let me hit this story up here. This is from the War Zone. Very good outlet. Rare Chinese naval drill with previous unannounced live fire components has disrupted air traffic around the Tasman Sea between Australia and New Zealand. Authorities in Australia said they only learned of the Chinese ships would be firing some of their weapons after the crews of commercial airliners received alerts. In addition to the signals that, this is a little more abrasive even than what China is known for, no, Joe? I mean, because generally speaking, they play by the rules where they send the correct, in the past, but not anymore. In addition to the signals, this particular incident sends the general presence of the flotilla in the region underscores the increasing reach of steadily larger and more capable PLAN plan, People's Liberation Army Navy. One of my favorite Navy names, by the way. Let's see. It was a destroyer, a frigate, and a replenishment ship were sailing in international waters east of Australia last week. Let's see. The Type 055 is the most modern and capable warship in Chinese service today. Elements of the Australian and New Zealand armed forces, including warships and a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol plane, that's a lot of P's in the same sentence, has been shadowing
both of them.
Yeah. What's your take, Joe, with these shooting off these live rounds in the middle of? I mean, it's international water, but at the same time, it's common courtesy.
Well, the Tasman Sea barely qualifies as international waters.
Yeah.
Because both the New Zealand and the Australian exclusive economic zones coincide there. And it's not a very wide thing. It's an intentional provocation to Australia to say, listen, we're China and we can go wherever we want. For all of you who keep telling me China does not have a blue water navy, this goes directly in the face of that. And when you say Australian and New Zealand forces monitor the event, both ships, the Australian one and the New Zealand one, they have a hard time fielding ships in the Anzac Navy. A lot of them are down for maintenance. So crazy.
Yeah. Maybe Australia's like, I wish we had bought those, those submarines when we could.
No. They bought them. They just aren't getting them delivered for like 30 years. So,
well, if they had made their own, though, or if they got the French ones, actually, they probably would have had them already. Anyway, so I mean, that's about as far as I want to go with this. We kind of touched on this story on Friday, just kind of around the horn. Watcher, I know China's kind of always tickles your pickle. What's your take on this?
Oh, sorry, I just got hit by sneezing. My take is the same as it's been forever. They're going to continually escalate these drills until it becomes normalized, and then one day it's not going to be a drill. That's exactly how I would play. So,
yeah. Any final thoughts there, Joe, before we move on?
Yeah. Taken as an individual event, it's a thumb in the nose of Australia. But when we're dealing with China, the nation of the 1,000-year strategy, you can't take it on its own. Look at the cable cuts around Matsu and Kinmen, the cable cuts in the Baltic, their moves in the Solomons, and their moves in the Celebes Sea off of the Philippines. It paints a picture of a nation poised on the edge of waging a Pacific War. And you cannot discount that.
Yeah. Joe, these are the kind of accidents or, unplanned events that people can overreact to. And like you said, kind of lead to larger events. Maybe not right now, but if the tensions were a little higher, for sure.
Yeah, and someone's Navy just announcing a snap drill in your economic zone is raising the tensions.
People were asking about what that was in the story. It's a balloon, but if I remember correctly, it's an inflatable target. And they would do live fire against the inflatable target, and that's what they would shoot at. All right, that's all I got on that one, gents. Let us move on, shall we? Now, this next one's a little on the spicy side, Joe. I'm sure both you and Watcher will have some feedback on this. Trump fires Joint Chief of Staff after alleged coup plot exposed by James O'Keefe video. We're not going to watch the James O'Keefe video because it's pretty long. But let me get through this story here because it's got the main things. In a stunning and unprecedented move, Donald Trump has fired the Joint Chief of Staff, the highest military officers in the United States, following allegations of a plot to undermine his authority. The dramatic shakeup announced late Friday night, February 21st, stems from a controversial video released by investigative journalist James O'Keefe, who reportedly exposed a high-level Pentagon official. This is that one where the guy was talking about basically we're going to make sure that what he does doesn't reach the military. So it's over a month old, but exposed a high-level Pentagon official discussing secret meetings to defy and potentially overthrow Donald Trump if he issues orders deemed controversial by military leadership. The firings have ignited a firestorm of debate, with some hailing it as a bold defense of civilian control over the military, while others decry it as a dangerous politicization of the armed forces. The saga began on January 15th, 2025, when O'Keefe Media Group released undercover footage featuring Jamie Mania, a senior advisor to the Joint Chief of Staff and former FBI special agent. In the video, Mania, who was employed by defense contractor Booz Allen Hamilton. By the way, if you don't know about those guys, do like a search on them. It's there's some shady shit in that. They were recorded speaking with undercover OMG journalist. He alleged admitting to participate in a huge meeting with military leaders in a secure Pentagon room known as the Tank, a SCIF, which stands for a Sensitive Compartmentalized Information Facility. According to him, the discussions involved retired generals, some as high-ranking as 4 stars, and focused on strategies to protect people from Trump and explore what we can do to counter his incoming administration. His statement painted a picture of clandestine effort within the military establishment to resist Trump's authority. He claimed to have been in conversations with retired generals since the spring of 2024, working through a 501c4 organization to obscure their involvement. The organization tried to defeat Donald Trump, Menina said, adding that he had ghostwritten over 100 opinion columns for generals to sway public opinion against Trump during the election cycle. Gentlemen, this kind of rises to the level. This should go beyond people being fired. This should go to charges being brought. This sounds like sedition.
This is an actual seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
It continues, and that's where the other story that I don't know if we're going to talk about or not, but the other story of listening devices in the Resolute desk comes into play.
Well, I tell you what, Watcher, what we'll do is we'll bounce. When we finish this story, we'll go straight to the listening devices one, because we've got that one on tap.
We are in a very, very dangerous time in American history. And the more winning moves that Trump does, the higher the risk that these people actually pull the trigger. Think about this. He felt confident enough to mention that there was a plan to someone he had just met. What's being said to people they've known for a long time?
Yeah.
It's probably something very, very different and very, very much more dangerous.
Yeah, what's going on to people who are inside or in the loop, right? Or read in on, on their plans. The January video set off alarm bells within Trump transition team, already wary of the deep state resistance from his first term. Sources close to the administration suggest the footage fueled suspicion of a broader conspiracy within the Pentagon. By February 21st, just over a month into a second term, Trump acted decisively. In a Truth Social post, he announced the firing of General Charles C.Q. Brown. And so he was the Air Force general that was traveling all over Europe with Pete Hegseth last week. And the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff thanking him for his 40 years of service, but offering no specific reasons for his dismissal. Minutes later, Defense Secretary Hegseth followed with a statement confirming the removal of Chief of Naval Operations, Air Force Vice Chief of Staff, and the Judge Advocate General of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Reports indicate that Trump... Now, Joe, there is no separate Judge Advocate for the Marine Corps, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it falls under... I like the idea of the next CNO being a Marine 4-star.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Despite what people think, Marines actually have a pretty good grasp of naval concepts and naval operations, but we're not just dumb ground pounders. But this actually, to me, everyone else thought, well, this is just a bloodbath and removing prior political appointees. This does have the earmarks of stomping out a coup that was underway before it ever got underway, killing it in the cradle, right? Again, I think it raises our danger level, not lowers it, because now the others who remain are going to be that much more desperate to retain control.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Joe. I mean, this is definitely an ongoing thing that needs to be watched. All right. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of clicking through some things here, trying to find. All right. Let me get back to it. Trump nominated retired Air Force General Dan Raisin Kane to replace Brown, an unusual choice given Kane's retirement status and lower rank as a 3-star general. Trump praised Kane as a warfighter instrumental in defeating ISIS, recalling a 2018 meeting in Iraq where Kane allegedly promised to annihilate the caliphate in a week. Hegseth echoed the sentiment, calling Kane the leader we need to meet the moment. It sounds like Donald Trump was able to kind of suss out some of the generals based on, conversations he had with them back during his previous administration, guys who, would be good to bring in to closer to the fold, if you will. It's good to see that there are some generals out there who are, I have no idea what their politics are. And to be quite honest, as long as they get the job done and they have the right attitude and they focus on the right things when it comes to training our militaries, I don't give a shit what their politics are.
I'll be honest, it should always be hard to know what a general's politics are if they're doing their job correctly. His politics should be to obey the Constitution and the orders of those appointed above him.
Yeah, the National Command Authority is in control of the military. It's civilian control of the military, not the military control. But and what we saw during Trump's first administration, Joe, was exactly the reason why you have to, focus on getting people that will follow the orders that they're given, as long as they are legal orders. And telling people to leave Syria is not an illegal order.
Correct.
Let's see. Fallout and reaction here. The firings have sent shockwaves throughout Washington. General Brown, a decorated F-16 pilot and the second black chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, was seen as a stabilizing figure. So here's the thing. Brown was absolutely about as woke a general as they can get.
I just going to say, Brown, the one who openly said that DEI was his number one priority in command.
Yeah, I'd like to know what his decorations were for.
Yeah. Their removals were seen as a symbolic rejection of what Hegseth has called the woke military leadership. Hegseth has accused Brown of prioritizing diversity over readiness, has called for his ouster before taking office. This shouldn't be a surprise, but it's just good to see them kind of following up with with things like this. Lawmakers and former officials have sounded the alarm. Representative Adam Smith called Brown's firing completely unjustified, warning it weakens America. Yeah, of course you think it weakens America, because it weakens your political side, because you don't have political control over the military, despite the fact that Donald Trump is the president. The work of a wannabe dictator suggests Trump's aim to it. So here's the thing with Obama, he fired 147 generals or something like that in a very short period of time, and nobody says boo about that. But yet when Trump fires a handful of generals, I mean, this is the work of a dictator, install yes men.
No, it's very clear that he has the right and ability, and that it is morally correct to do what he's doing. They just only have one.
I'd like to play. Yeah, I'm going to agree with Washer here, and I'm going to agree with Washer here 100% and say, hey, in the military, it's the one place where you have to be a yes man, right? You don't really get the option, short of an illegal order, you don't really get the option to say no. So absolutely, and this idea that hiring yes men is a bad thing. I should hire yes men. I should hire people who actually are going to do what I want them to, not people who are going to fight me every step of the way. It's absolutely silly. And if that's your judgment, and Barack Obama was the worst offender by a long shot.
Yeah, if any of them have any questions about the way this is supposed to go, I have this book that I've got it on my shelf. I can lend it to them. It's about a man named Garcia and the need to get a message to him. Sorry, I figured I'd get a chuckle out of Joe with that one.
Well, I mean, you get a chuckle out of me too.
You did. You did, but I was on mute.
Essentially, what my two friends are referring to is a book called Message to Garcia, and it's the quintessential leadership book, specifically American style leadership, where what was it? Teddy Roosevelt, was that who it was? I think it was. Who was the president?
I believe that's correct.
I think it's Teddy Roosevelt, and so this guy is a rebel leader, I think, in Cuba, and he basically gets this young junior officer in his office and says, "I want you to get this message to this, rebel leader Garcia," and but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you when to do it. I just want you to get this message to Garcia, right? And so the whole point is about leadership, where you give them a task and a purpose, and you just send them out into the world and let them kind of do it. You don't constrain junior leaders with a lot of extra extraneous stuff. But at the same time, it's also a message to junior leaders about, listen, Garcia didn't need all this extra, all these extra questions and things like that. He understood his task, he understood his purpose, and he went off into the world to execute his mission. So Message Garcia is a great book on leadership if any of you guys are interested. All right. This next story is disturbing, if I'm honest. And it kind of goes in line with what you said, Joe. And it makes me wonder if this isn't totally linked to what we were just talking about. Breaking: listening devices found in Oval Office, including President's Resolute desk. White House confirms intensive security sweep uncovered concealed audio surveillance. Desk removed for forensic analysis. Miniature transmitter suspected. And Joe, I mean, you're our resident expert in security. What's your take on this?
I've got a couple. One is that the device has only recently become active. So that tells us that there is some sort of an ongoing and active plot. The removal of these generals kind of confirms that. In order for someone to get access to the Resolute desk, would have required the complicity of the Secret Service. That is a high risk level factor for Donald Trump. It's not like the cleaning lady slipped a bug in the desk, right? Nobody gets access to that room. You have to be supervised by the Secret Service when you're in there. There's a million cameras. There's all kinds of things. So some people that Donald Trump trusts have to be in on this plot. And to me, this is just an indicator that the deep state or administrative state, whatever you want to call them, is not about to just lay down. They are actively fighting against Donald Trump. And I don't mean resisting. Planting bugs is a little bit more than just resisting. It's active gathering. So there's something going on there.
You know, I can't help but think that the military would absolutely be, you know, have this kind of capabilities. The intelligence agencies, and these are also people that have fairly regular access to the Oval Office. And you said, Joe, that the transmitter is probably very low power, so somebody needs to be in fairly close proximity, most likely, in order to use this.
Yeah, in order to have a miniaturized recorder or miniaturized bug, you have to miniaturize everything. So battery life becomes important, and therefore what you sacrifice is range. So somebody has to be within line of sight and fairly close to be receiving the signal from this. And it's not that it's just a recording device. It's actively emitting a signal. So it tells you someone probably within 500 to 1,000 feet is monitoring that signal.
Yeah. Anyway, so like I said, this is very disturbing. What's your final thought on this before we move on?
Can't wait for the scene where Baron Trump finds the hunter-killer drone in his room and traps it. So.
You got to take care of the Quasar cataract before he takes care of you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I hope that Barron made sure they changed the sheets in the presidential son's bedroom. I'm just saying.
Oh, gross.
The
all
good
right.
news is they both wanted a race car bet though, so not a lot of changes have been made.
Here's our next story here. I'll be honest with you, and Joe, you hit the nail right on the head. This story is important. First of all, if when I read this title, if you don't know why this story is important, you need to get your head screwed on. But I will continue to kind of, you know, when I see these smaller stories, continue to echo them, because we all need to get our head straight on exactly what the threat to the homeland is. And it is significant. U.S. borders we're going to wipe drug cartels off the face of the earth. Now, Joe, these drug cartels are generally in Mexico, other places as well. But, you know, the Mexico is the place most kind of close to the U.S. How long do you think they're going to get shot at before they kind of bring the fight to U.S. civilians?
Seriously, they're not gonna let this go down. Something happens to them in Mexico, something will happen at a shopping mall or park or something in America. It's the one thing they have the capability to do immediately. Narco-terrorism is the thing. They have cells all over the country just waiting for the opportunity to do this. The cartels are big supporters of what's known as the
Reconquista. Hey, we lost you there, Joe. You just broke up. Okay, we lost Joe there. I'm sure he'll be back here in a second. Are you back, Joe? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes, you watch. Go ahead.
I didn't realize.
Oh, there's Joe.
Oh, I'm getting Joe again. Go ahead, Joe. All right. He is still not all the way back. Roboto Dolio. Come on now. That's not nice. Watcher, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I think my favorite part of this discussion is how inevitably there's someone to jump out of the woodworks to say that because there will be repercussions or because it will be hard, that means we shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's unironically, that happens literally at every time we try to get into a fight, right? You think of the people who are going to die. Well, okay. People are going to die. I mean, that's what conflict's all about. U.S. Border Control Czar Tom Homan told Fox News' Jesse Water that President Donald Trump intends to dismantle the command and control centers of the Mexican drug cartels, vowing to put them out of business and wipe them off the face of the earth. These are strong words against cartels that have fueled a drug overdose crisis responsible for the deaths of 100,000 Americans each year. Waters asked Homan how cartels have adapted to in the last 60 days since Trump's America First border policies of placing the military by thousands on the southern border. Joe, you back?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, when you said Reconquista, that's when we kind of lost all contact. So,
yeah, maybe I shouldn't say that word.
Right.
I just pointing out that they have foot soldiers all over America, and this war would not only be fought in Mexico or south of the border, it would be fought in places like Bozeman, Montana.
Louisville, Kentucky,
Denver, Colorado, Aurora, Colorado, Louisville, Kentucky, all over the country, and they will make attacks at shopping malls and gas stations and parks because they have no compunction about killing civilians, while we do. They're not going to play by the Geneva Convention. They're not a signatory to it. So there's going to be a lot of issues there, and the Mexican army is not just going to sit this out. So it's going to be a pretty interesting fight. We will see. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm saying we should have our eyes open.
Yeah. Interesting point, though. Just a thought I've been having. I legitimately think it would be very difficult for the cartels to kill as many people with bullets and blades as they are already killing every year with drugs.
Yeah, but just imagine them trying. Just imagine them trying.
So here's the thing, right? I Am Bob says, we tried the drug war already. Well, so here's the thing, right? And this is one of the reasons why it fundamentally failed. But this would not be a war on drugs. This would be a war on the cartels, right? Treating them as criminal networks, and then attacking the network directly versus the actual product. Now, there would be they would take a hit. The drug trade would take a hit, but at the same time, ultimately, it's about these cartels have growing so brazen and so strong under years and years and years of essentially no management. I mean, I see this as somebody's let their yard get out of control. We need to just go back and cut it back, and it needs to be cut back every so often.
I was just going to say that's what it's going to become. It's going to become the Vietnam yard mowing missions.
Well, it'll become Vietnam for the Mexican military, but ultimately, and who knows? Mexico doesn't seem to be interested in going down the El Salvador route, but El Salvador seems to have figured out the solution to their drug gang problem. I don't know if maybe that's something Mexico might want to look into. When the problems are when you literally don't have control of your entire country, you can't sit there and look at liberal democracy type of solutions as the way forward, right? It's a tough solution. Go ahead, Joe.
American political will is also a problem. What is our will for a fight when they take down a P-8 with 46 guys on board and kill them all in over Baja, Mexico, right? Do we have the political will to continue?
Yeah. How do we have the ability to stay with the fight like that? Right. The interesting thing there is that, unlike Afghanistan and the Taliban and all that kind of stuff, who had access to some Pakistani, things and whatnot, the Mexican cartels probably would get access to fairly advanced weaponry from China. Now, they may not get like long range SAMs or anything like that, but what it may do is it may attract Chinese intelligence and special operations elements to potentially bolster some of the cartel forces. I mean, I could kind of war game this out quite a ways, and none of it is good.
I'm also betting you that cartel forces and we'll just say Islamist extremist forces link up relatively quickly in this scenario we're laying out.
Well, yeah, I think it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? And so you would have all the people who like the T-shirt "I Hate America," all kind of getting together. How can I help? I want to get in on this too. All right. Let's see. Let me see if there's anything else in this story to cover. Okay, so let me give you some quotes from Tom Homan. He says, "We're going to put them out of business. President Trump does not mess around with criminal terrorist organizations. These cartels have killed more Americans than every terror organization combined. President Trump will end up wiping the cartels off the face of the earth, putting them out of business. If you put them out of business, you will take their money away. They can't buy or bribe Mexican officials. Without money, they have no power. We're not just going to attack in Mexico, the Jalisco cartel. We're going to attack them in 43 countries that they have operations currently. We're going to attack them worldwide." Waters ended it with, "That's a bold statement."
Sweet boys, we get a new global war. This is actually a boon to the military-industrial complex, because they can justify an awful lot of things. Somebody once used cocaine in Andorra, so we need to steamroll Andorra.
Right.
There's a lot of leeway in here. I'd also like to point out one thing, that cartel fighters are used to operating in austere environments with little to no logistical support. Our boys are not. And that's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, the irony, Joe, is that, it's hard. Granted, there's a lot of parallels between this kind of fight and what we did for the last 20 years in Afghanistan and, specifically, but also in Iraq. Because there would be a lot of parallels to Iraq, actually, with the more urban focus, I think, of some of these cartels. The sad thing is, Joe, is like, just because, maybe we shouldn't be fighting wars like Iraq, but the war on our border, right, in Mexico may be the one we actually have to fight, that we may be obliged to fight in order to protect and defend the United States and its people.
20-mile buffer zone.
I'm with you, brother. That and a robust Coast Guard defense net in the Gulf of America and along the Baja Peninsula. All right. Yeah, see, that's just it. You can't just surrender, right? Just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't do it, right? If it's hard, what you do is you may adjust how you do it, right? You try to do it work smarter, not harder. But at the same time, it should depress you. I mean, this is a threat that there are people in your town right now who serve the cartel as their master, right? If you live in a town of more than 2,000 people, then there is somebody in that town most likely who has connection, and or allegiance to a cartel figure.
Hey, that restaurant in town that doesn't get a ton of customers but somehow stays open year after year.
Yeah.
I have some news.
That really good Mexican place that's been there for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Or that New
Anyway,
Mexico place that just sprung up even though the owner didn't have very much money to get it started. Weird.
Weird. Anyway, so that's it for the odds and ends, gents. Joe, you've had a pretty successful little run here over the weekend with some classes. What do you got coming up next with tactical-wisdom.com?
Well, I'm going to do a review of the Fieldcraft and Scout courses and kind of what you can expect and what sort of changes we've made in the curriculum of both. I'll stand by it, and Matt will too, that if you want to do well at Matt's Scout course, you need to take my Fieldcraft class first and get the foundational skills. We had some challenging weather, but that actually made the class more realistic. We had a lot of folks who dropped coming into either the Scout or the Fieldcraft class due to the weather. If that's really how you are, you're not going to make it, bro. You can't train for the end of the world yet run at the potential for bad weather. You got to get out and train in it. So we're going to talk about that. The next thing that I have coming up is the community security class in Montana next month at Camp Ponderosa. We're looking to fill the schedule with some more classes from Kay. And then our big training week is May 16th through the 26th. That's about 10 days long. We're going to run the RTO course, Basic Communications. Then we're going to run Signals Intelligence, followed by Night Vision and Night Fighting class. And then my community security class, all in one same 10-day period. I think Kay's going to jump in there with a ground rod during that same time frame. So it's going to be a serious, legit week of training out at Camp Ponderosa in May. You can fly into Glacier or Missoula and come hang out with us. It's going to be a good time.
Now, for those of you that say, well, gosh, those classes are kind of expensive. I don't know if I can take two. Well, here's the thing, right? If you get there, that's like I am almost half of the cost is just getting there. So you're saving money if you take multiples in one trip. So consider that if you have the ability to get off from work or whatever. And let's be honest, this is the kind of vacation where you actually get something out of it, and you probably get some new lifelong friends as well, which is not a bad deal. You
cannot understate the value of the community building, right? I've met some guys I consider brothers through this whole experience, and you have to get out and meet each other face to face and get beyond this. No, I don't want to because I'm so important that the government's constantly stalking me. You have to get beyond that. Let them stalk you. Get out and meet people.
All right. Let us jump in. Guys, anything else before we jump into our first main topic of the day? No. All right. Hey, so we're talking about Israel and what's the likelihood of them kind of going for round two over there in the Middle East. Now, there's a lot of different ways that they could do that. They could expand into the West Bank. They could do more in Syria, or they could continue to rock Hezbollah. Gaza's pretty much so the other thing too is Gaza, they've got this peace deal. They're getting ready to finish round one of the hostages. But the thing is, and guys, I want to get your take on this. The next thing is that the Israelis will pull back from their security zones in Gaza, but Hamas must do A, disarm, totally disarm, and B, they must remove themselves from governance within Gaza. I don't think either one of those is going to happen. Hold on a second. Hold that thought. Lost Core 23 for $10 over in the Rumble chat says, since I'm late, I had to pause at discussion of AK-47 Wally and go listen to it at 2x speed, of course, because it sounds weird at a normal speed. Yeah, it is a weird song, but I mean, it's a banger. It is what it is. Hey, real quick, let me.
If by weird you mean glorious, then you're right.
Let me catch up. I got a couple other super chats here. Peter Shays helicopter tours for $5. So when I was yawning earlier, he says that yawn coming from an infantryman means we are keeping you up? ? Scott, the cure for a Giannis and PT. My NCO used to say there are two types of enlisted, smart and strong. Yeah. That's for me. It was always, are you a smart ranger or a strong ranger? Because you got to be one of the two in order to get through this. Yeah, I can't get up and do PT in the middle of the show, brother. That's just, And then, of course, Peanut Shades Helicopter Tours for $1 says, Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto Dolio, when Joe was having trouble with his connection. So, very funny. All right. So, guys, what's your take on what happens at Gaza? Because I don't see either one of those happening.
I see us return to the status quo. We're going to return to fighting and outright combat between them. Benjamin Netanyahu is writing some checks that he doesn't have the money for in his bank account. And he needs to decide where he's going to put his focus. Is he going to put it in southern Syria? Is he going to put it in the West Bank? Or is he going to put it in Gaza? He can't do all three.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just one of those kind of things. That split focus, right, is tough to, you want to try to do so much, but at the same time, you can only do so much.
Wait, I just got a text message. It's Mossad Monday. Take back everything I just said. It's all going to be great.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Fine. I was going to say, joke. Come on, man. You're killing our sponsorship deal. All right. So on to this first story here in Lebanon. So they decide to finally have the funeral for Hussein Nasrallah in Lebanon. And, they get all their buddies, all their Hezbollah buddies out there. And then this happens. Watch, you want to play that video that you were already playing? There we go. And there's several other videos, so you can just kind of go through them while we talk. You got to share it, though. There we go. So this is the funeral, and then two F-16s and two F-15s from the Israeli Israeli Air Force basically does a formation flyby right over the top of the funeral. It's kind of like Joe, I kind of thought that was the ultimate potential cluster bomb target. That they really missed a trick, not let's fixing the glitch when they had the chance there. Maybe a napalm would have been okay as well. As a
can you imagine the public relations nightmare if they did? I mean, only America is allowed to bomb funerals and weddings.
That's right. That's right.
Well, there's part of me that goes, hey, look, the international community is already going as hard as they can on Israel in every factor anyways. So what really, other than Israel's own decency, is preventing them from just saying, hey, you know what? Taking this place out would prevent a whole lot of future pain for literally everyone.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of things. Yeah, it's that would be despicable, but at the same time, it would be shockingly, I don't know.
To me, this was the ultimate troll, and I troll them further.
Yeah.
And when people say, "Oh, this was outrageous," I would say, "No, we were rendering honors to an enemy leader." And you get an opportunity to run that out. It'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought this was the troll game in the international and political arenas in the last few years has just been next level. It's we have to be living in a simulation because some of the things that have been happening could only happen in a TV show or a movie or a book or something like this. Speaking of books, by the way, Matt L in the chat said, I was getting ready to type something up, but Matt Ellen says, Chad, do you guys ever talk about BattleTech? I've heard you talk about Warhammer 40K, so thought to ask. Yeah, well, so sadly enough.
Well, before you get into what you're about to get into, I mean, as a matter of fact, we've had the guy who literally designed and is heading the new BattleTech game on the show before.
Yeah, so Blaine Pardoe is an old school BattleTech creator. He's a writer for the company all the way in the FASA days.
Was, unfortunately.
And he wrote several of the novels. And if you've been a fan of this show for a while, you've seen him on. And Blaine got basically canceled by some absolute.
Joe, you said you weren't going to let us get derailed, and then somebody brought up BattleTech, and here we go for the next 40 minutes.
Wow. Now, give me credit. I was going to give myself 2 minutes, Joe. So just give me a second here. Give me some grace, please. Basically what happened was that the company behind BattleTech, I can't remember which one it is. It's Hasbro, I think, owns it. Basically canceled Blaine and for no reason at all. And so we just kind of stay away from BattleTech, and here's the thing, Matt, if you're interested in BattleTech and you're interested in that kind of stuff, I would have you check out Land and Sea, which is Blaine's new novel series about a near future sci-fi military alien invasion scenario. And we just happen to have a comic book that I'm working on, the second issue. Actually, I was writing on it earlier today. That's right. And so, art's finished, by the way, on Land and Sea, and Doug's working on colors. So, it's looking good in the near future. And by the way, if you're also a supporter of Doorkickers, that's going to print literally any day now. So. All right.
Well,
off that.
Yeah. Before we move to the next topic, I thought I had this in the show that it was going to be between odds and ends and main show topic, but apparently I shuffled in the wrong place, and here it is now. And Joe, I wanted your intake or your
hey, watch your. Let's put this in between segment 1 and segment 2.
Good call.
Yeah, because I don't want to further disrupt the segment itself. All right, let's move on to our next story here. So, not only has Israel recently baked southern Lebanon, but they also, found all kinds of scunion in southern Damascus. Netanyahu says Israel won't allow Syrian forces south of Damascus. Israeli Prime Minister now, so this gets to that whole, maybe he's biting off a little more than he can chew, Joe. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel will not allow Syria's new army or the insurgent group that led to the ouster of the former president to enter the area south of Damascus, as his government has made clear Israeli forces will stay in parts of southern Syria for an indefinite period. Netanyahu's comments Sunday at a military graduation led new concerns over the Israeli presidents and sway in a swath of southern Lebanon, southern Syria, as Damascus new leaders attempt to consolidate control after years of civil war. Take note, we will not allow HTS forces or the new Syrian army to enter the area south of Damascus. We demand the complete demilitarization of southern Syria in the provinces of Quneitra, Dara, and Suwaida from the forces of the new regime. Likewise, we will not tolerate any threat to the Druze community in southern Syria. There's no immediate response from Syrian authorities. Syrian Ministry of Defense Israel Katz said that Israeli forces will remain on the peak of Mount Hermon in southern Syria and in a buffer zone for an indefinite period of time to protect our communities and thwart any threat. Joe, what's your take on this?
It's got exactly the same legal weight as the U.S. occupation of Syria does as well. So.
I mean, I would say the only difference here, Joe, is that this would be as good as our demilitarized buffer zone in northern Mexico if we were to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
And, ultimately in international competition, there is no such thing as legal right? I mean, it's what you can make happen. Its force becomes the ability to set the stage, I guess, huh?
Let me give you an old Roman quote. Do not quote laws to men with swords.
Well said. Well said. Watcher, what's your kind of thought on this?
Oh, sorry, I've been in chat answering another question about one of the campaigns. My thought is that Syria is a big chaotic soup, and Israel can say a lot of things, and they can certainly, actually extend that with force. But ultimately, I don't think we know what's going to come out of Syria yet.
Here's my take on this whole thing, right? The HTS, and we'll call them Al Qaeda to keep it simple. Al Qaeda, who now is the boss of Syria, has got he's got a lot of consolidation to do, and has probably what, Joe, would you reckon almost half of the country they don't even occupy or control. Actually,
over half. Yeah,
or that. And most of what they have is either the cities along the coast there, that Damascus, Homs, Idlib line, and then anything essentially to the east of that just turns into desert, and it's just not there's not much there.
This is a dangerous precedent we're allowing the Western media to set here, that if you control the capital, you control the country. Let's just say for some reason the Chinese invaded and took and held Washington, D.C. Does that mean that they are now the de facto rulers of the United States? Or would there be an act of resistance and we would just move our capital, right? And I think that's the danger we're falling into here with HTS controls Damascus, so they're now the Syrian government. Doesn't make it any more true. They don't actually hold the country.
Yeah, once you oust the former government, then you have to consolidate and reorganize over the entire country, and that basically means putting your people in charge everywhere. Because let's be honest, when you've got a power vacuum, everybody kind of goes to fill it in. So it'll be
particularly in that corner of the world, right? Right. You rule the toughest corner in the roughest neighborhood in the city. Do you really control much?
Let's see. Jim Satala, if I remember correctly. Future conflict. The major problem with Israel and buffer zones is they always make the mistake of building settlements in the zones and then makes it's no longer a buffer zone. Well, I mean, Joe, what were you telling me before the show about some of the language that's being used by Netanyahu regarding some of the lands outside of Israel proper?
Yeah, so when speaking of some of the lands in the West Bank, he used the terms Judea and Samaria, which are traditional names. I'll give him that, but they've been called that for 5,000 years. But the media called it crazy and reckless that he would use those terms. But he is using those terms, and you need to think about that. And when you look at from a biblical or Talmudic or even Quran interpretation, those were traditionally parts of Israel.
Yeah. Well, Joe, it's almost like somebody resurrected some crazy, obscure Roman name for a part of that area, and then in the basically the post-World War II era, decided to revive that name and then give it to people who basically had no right to it. Oh, wait a second, that's Palestine. So at least there's precedent for digging up ancient names and reusing them in areas. So I don't know that that's helpful, because that smacks of future ideas of where they should go next. But at the same time, I think, you're absolutely right. It's absolutely nuts for the left-wing media to go on and on and on.
What if What do you think would happen if Kim Jong-un started talking about Kogoryu, right, or something like that?
Right.
Silla, some of the more ancient names for Korea, right?
Yeah.
Palche, you know.
Yeah. If he says I'm gonna reoccupy the Shilla area, that would be the southern portion of South Korea. So that's what we're talking about here. When I think of Sheila, though, I think of the hotel, but that's just me. Was holding Kabul enough to rule Afghanistan? It depends on the month, I guess. All right. Hey, real quick, let me catch up here. Stormy has a member for 29 months. Thank you for your membership, Story. Happy Monday, fabulous humans. I'm headed to a mandatory training. Someone save me. Miss y'all. Yeah, we miss you too. Sorry you got to do mandatory fun. That sucks.
I suspect Mando trainings are significantly less shitty after
in the civilian world.
Yeah.
Oh, after last one, I don't know. They're probably having sensitivity training on like how to handle. When you see the terrible orange man, and he says all these hurtful things.
No, yeah. I was gonna say, let me just tell you that the corporate world is doubling down because Donald Trump has no authority over them. So it probably will suck.
Yeah. Penis Chase Helicopters for $2 says it's time to unretire and unleash MACV SOG on South America. They operated in a place they weren't supposed to be and raised hell in Cambodia. Well, unfortunately, most of those guys are in their upper 70s at this point. I don't know if, but yeah, I take your point, right? Basically Black Ops, the Phoenix program where they were assassinating communist cadres within South Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos. Pretty interesting. All right, let's get to our last story here in the Israel Part 2 segment. Speaking of Samara and Judea, Israel moves tanks into the West Bank for the first time since 2002. Israel sent tanks into the West Bank on Sunday for the first time since 2002, telling the military to prepare for an extended stay as the Jewish state remains determined to stamp out terrorism in the territory's refugee camps. Several tanks were moving to Jenin as a fragile ceasefire between the terrorist organization Hamas and Israel remains in place. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said he and Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered the military to increase the intensity of activities to thwart terrorism. Now, Joe, I totally understand why they did this. I mean, there's been a persistent threat, especially ever since Gaza popped off, from the groups within, the West Bank, Jenin, some of these other areas in central West Bank, in close proximity to Jerusalem. What's your take on how this goes? And was it smart of Israel to do this? I don't know if they had a choice, if I'm honest, because you can't not continue to pressure the threat. No.
Well, there's a couple of things. Either Israel knows something that the rest of us do not, or
which is probably true.
Or they're hyperextending themselves.
Yeah.
Now, if I knew that something bigger was coming and I was pre-positioning my chess pieces to hold what I had and hold maybe a little bit of a buffer, then that would make sense. So I'm gonna lean that way, that they probably know some other actor, wink, wink, who looks a lot like Uncle Sam, wink, wink, is about to do something in the region, and they're trying to pre-position assets to hold something, or they're just talking crazy because the world's crazy and they're doing whatever they want. One of those two things is true, and I'm not sure which. But I don't know, man. We live in crazy, crazy times, and I know everyone always believes in the nothing ever happens syndrome, but we're literally on the cusp of world-altering events, and they can happen at the drop of a hat, and most likely could happen by accident. So
Joe,
knows?
you're so right. You're so right. We talked about this the other day, this whole kind of march to war, like the big war, right? And we've talked a lot over the last 3 years about these smaller wars, right? And how World War III will start as not like one giant war, but these smaller wars that are kind of proxy wars in a way, but they're not just proxy wars, but ultimately that will link up to something larger.
If you think about this, and I'm gonna diverge for just a minute and talk
ahead.
about one of the people I can't stand the most on the planet, Barack Hussein Obama. If your name is Barack and you knew that your world was being collapsed by Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and you decided to tear it all down, what a better time than when Donald Trump is president to say, see, y'all elected Donald Trump and it led to World War III.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't discount that possibility of things like that going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot going on, and on top of it all, we've got a very generous Hunts the Dirty Roofer who just gifted 10 Future Conflict memberships. Brother, you have made my day. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate your patronage.
And hey, Hunch, I hope you're feeling a little stronger. Hunch really was a trooper and really went to town during our event this weekend, and he was a great warrior out there at night. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunch is a solid human being. So
I know that he was at the scout course and he had to leave to go do some work, and he will be back to take the Fighting Kalashnikov course over the weekend.
That is definitely a class I want to take. I want to do that, and unfortunately, I'll end up bringing my 223 or 5.56 Kalashnikov to do it. But
and you will be clowned mercilessly, as you should be.
Well, why not? I mean, you don't think I don't have a sharp wit that I can come back?
Oh no, you'll take it. And for the record, Hunch and I made the same walk that you and I made from the range up. And while it still sucked, it was a lot more bearable when it was not 103 degrees.
Exactly right. I mean, Joe, you were having a hard time. I was like, Joe, that hill kind of take it out of you? He was like, no, it's the fucking heat.
Yeah, it's 103 degrees, bro. This is killing me.
You gotta admit, listen to this guy right here. No, you know what's gay, Hunch, are people who take an AR platform and put an AK magwell in it. That's what's gay.
I will tell you what though, Hunch's 7.62 ARs were the talk of the class. Everyone liked them. They're pretty nice.
Well, I have to say, when I showed up at the G camp last time with 5.56 AK, there were a lot of people who were like, "Ooh, that's cool. Let me see."
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Hey, anything different, right? It's
maybe next summer we'll have to have Rick back out so we can play a game of hide Rick's rifle in the field, which is always fun.
That's all right.
I'm glad that your rifle was not painted camouflage, Rick, or we never would have found it. So, anyway,
I need to rattle can some of my guns when I get back to the States, so we'll have to figure that out. All right.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on to our second segment, shall we?
Before we do, Joe, I have something for you, and I need a brief opinion.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Except for the shorts, I'm down.
There we go.
It's like the American version of roadie, right?
This guy missed a trick and not like having some some short camo shorts.
Yep.
All right. All right, so let's jump into Peace in the Wings. So, one of the most teased things, about Trump 2.0 has been how he's gonna shut down what's going on in Ukraine. And let me be honest with you, like I knew that it would never be, I'll do it in 48 hours. I knew that wasn't the case. Yeah, that's hyperbole that you use in sales, right? But let's be honest. He's made more movement towards a diplomatic solution in the are we going on 2 months now, or no, 1 month now that he's been in office? Essentially, a little over a month, 5 weeks maybe. Then the Biden administration made in 3 years. Oh, wait a second. I forgot. The Biden administration wanted the war. They didn't want peace. They wanted the war because they wanted the grift machine to roll. And Trump isn't getting the kickback to the from that, and so he wants the war to end. Because let's be honest, we don't have any fucking business in Ukraine. But the one thing that I can totally understand is I can understand a humanitarian idea that maybe we should stop having people get killed over there. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Let's look at this first story here. Efforts to arrange Trump-Putin meeting underway, Moscow says. In remarks he shared with the Russian state media, Rybakov indicated that efforts to arrange the meeting have begun in earnest and will require the most intensive preparatory work. That the envoys could meet within the next 2 weeks to lay the groundwork for the eventual talks between the two leaders. If Washington and Moscow can arrange for the two leaders to meet, it will mark the first time the United States president and a Russian president met directly since June 2021, when Putin met with then President Joe Biden in Geneva, Switzerland. Such a meeting would also mark the first in-person between the leaders of the United States and Russia since Moscow's troop marched into Ukraine 3 years ago. This is, the Ukraine conflict is absolutely red meat for the political left. They have never had. They haven't seen a war they haven't loved, since, I guess, Barack Obama took power. The U.S. delegation comprised of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff met with a Russian delegate in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on February 18th as part of the ongoing Trump administration's effort to reestablish regular dialogue with Moscow. What's your guys' initial take on these meetings and the kind of the path we see kind of coming out of this?
I've got two takes. The first one is that the left is going to lose their mind because you can't meet with the Russians, although the only way you can make peace is by meeting with your enemies, but whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about how it's evil and un-American and anti-Western and dictatorial to meet with Putin under any circumstances short of a full surrender. They're going to get out their little maps and show how they're going to carve up Russia again, which is pure folly. That's never going to happen. On the flip side of that, we're seeing the first indication that Zelensky is willing to step down. And I think that's because he's been shown some things or told some things by the U.S. government that said, you will play ball on this. So it's an interesting time. We'll see.
Hunch Dirty Roofer for $5 says, we call that camo pattern suburban plaid. It's an official cul-de-sac urban.
Hey, I don't take camo advice from the guy who wore Oscam all week.
Who wore that?
Hunch. And but it actually was very effective in the area that we were in. But y'all know what I was rocking, right? Anyone have any doubt what I was wearing?
Brushstroke?
Rhodesian brushstroke, yes.
Yeah, I knew it. Zelensky blinked. Well, Zelensky understands that the tide is going the other way at this point, and he needs to get off the boat.
My favorite of the Zelensky and Ukraine positions on this was that America doesn't get a say in when we stop fighting, as if you can continue fighting if we stop funding you, as if you can just stand there and throw rocks at Russians, and that will hold them off. Have fun with that.
Yeah. All right, let me continue on with this. So Rubio responded to a question. He said there isn't going to be a meeting until we know what the meeting is going to be about. I think that when that meeting happens, it will largely depend on whether we can make any progress on ending the war in Ukraine. And if we can, the meeting is what seals the deal. I think President Putin and Zelensky are going to have to get together because you know what? They want to stop killing millions of people. That's a quote from Trump. So ultimately, Trump has got to get Putin on board, and he's got to come up with a framework deal that kind of sweetens the pot for everybody. That gets the Ukrainians what they want. It gets the Russians what they want. Actually, nobody's going to be ultimately super happy with this, but it gets them something, right? It gets them something for the blood and treasure that they've spilled over the last 3 years. And I'll be honest with you, it's all fucking worthless. This is a war that never should have happened in the first place. And Joe, let me ask you this: Did Ukraine have any business being able to beat off Russia within that first 3 weeks?
No, this war should have been over a long time ago. And I'm not saying that Ukraine deserved to lose, but they would have lost, or they would have reached a negotiated settlement if it wasn't for war welfare. And that's really what it is. Now, on that same note, I want to point out that we have heard zero follow-up on the alleged drone attack on a containment vessel at Chernobyl.
Yeah.
That containment vessel is 100% in Ukrainian hands. So we would have had an opportunity for Western intelligence agencies to fully analyze the drone that was used. The fact that no one has said a word about it tells you who struck the containment vessel. And I guarantee you, if those remains were a Shahed drone, we'd hear all about it.
We would hear all about it. That's exactly right, Joe. You're 100% right. Yeah, that's spot on. You couldn't hit that one more on the head than. Anyway, yeah. So absolutely, and I almost think that it wasn't hit by a drone. There was something else going on. Is what I think, honestly. All right, let's move on to our next story, shall we? Speaking of Zelensky, and he's ready to pop smoke and get off the boat. Zelensky says ready to resign for the sake of peace and NATO membership. Well, NATO membership will never happen, but he will resign if this deal goes down, either before, during, or after. Speaking at Ukraine, the Year 2025 forum on Sunday, Zelensky told an audience that all heads of ministries, agencies, and top officials that he's ready to resign as president if it brings peace. He suggested that the country could be guaranteed NATO membership in exchange for his stepping down. So the irony is that if I step down, then you can let Ukraine be part. No, you stay, you go. It doesn't matter. Ukraine does not become part of NATO. Period. End. Stop. No fucking way. He says, I'm ready to leave my post if it brings peace, Zelensky said to journalists. And at a moment, he's feeling immense pressure from Donald Trump. Ukraine regional media Kiev Post was amongst the first to report the resignation comments. The same statement was also translated in Russian state media as follows: If peace for Ukraine, if you really need me to leave my post, then I'm ready. I can exchange this for NATO if there are such conditions. I am focusing on security of Ukraine today, not in 20 years, and I do not intend to be in power for decades, Zelensky said. He still asserted that martial law has to be lifted before there can be national elections, according to Ukraine.
Can I point something out?
Yeah.
This is the guy who said less than 2 weeks ago that he doesn't need to hold an election because the people want him to remain president.
Yeah, good point.
Those two things don't link up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. All right, let me go to this. Let me continue here. This comes a week after an open spat with the White House, wherein Trump called Zelensky a dictator for refusing to hold democratic elections and criticizing U.S. efforts at achieving peace with Moscow. Kiev complains that it's been cut out of U.S.-Russian engagement. Here's the thing. The U.S. has engaged with Zelensky's people. Now the U.S. is engaging with Putin's people. And once we kind of figure out exactly where they're both at, then we can put them in the same room together. Because, Joe, does it make any sense to bring Ukraine and Russia together if you can't bridge the gap? I mean, that's just a failure, waiting to happen.
No, not really. And I want to point something out that you just mentioned is this comments about being a dictator doesn't hold elections. I was listening to BBC yesterday, which is where most of the other people in the world get their propaganda. And their allegedly unbiased reporter said, when Donald Trump falsely claimed that Zelensky was a dictator who doesn't allow elections, that's not false. That's actually a fact. He rules by martial law. He has eliminated basic freedoms and refuses to hold elections. There's nothing false about it. But because the BBC said it was false, it's automatically believed to be true. Anyway, just a little bit of the propaganda game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the propaganda game going on right now. All right, says here, Zelensky briefly addressed this tit for tat in the forum, saying that he's not offended by Trump calling him a dictator, as he's not a dictator, according to the remarks. Only a dictator would be offended by the word dictator. I don't know that that's true, but okay. On Sunday, he also announced an important international summit on the Russia-Ukrainian war scheduled for Monday. Leaders of the 13 partner countries will attend in person, while 24 others will join online. Zelensky hinted the major decisions would come from the meeting. Well, what decisions? I mean, Russia's not there, so nothing's going to happen. I mean, you might get people to give you more weapons, which has happened recently, but let's see. Going down, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha has addressed the same forum and said that the following: "We are convinced that the third year of the brutal Russian aggression, we truly have a chance. We must not give in to emotions." Ukraine on Saturday was seriously considering a revised American proposal for its vast natural resources that contains virtually the same provisions that Kiev previously rejected as too onerous. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. The Biden administration weren't serious peoples, and so because of that, they weren't ever gonna consider anything that Biden wanted. All right, let's move on to the next story, shall we? And this is the final story of the show. Speaking of the mineral deal, Joe, what's your kind of initial kind of take on this whole idea that we're going to basically secure our investment in the Ukraine war basically by getting it returned in kind by mineral rights?
I'm pretty sure that's the deal that the Chinese have worked out with the Russians for the reconstruction work that the Chinese are now beginning in the Russian-held territories. So I don't think that's a bad thing. It should be a standard thing. Zelensky's gotten a lot of American taxpayer dollars. There has to be some sort of an ROI on us, and that ROI is not dead Russians, because that doesn't help us one bit. I know a lot of people think it does, but honestly, it does not. It doesn't do us any good. I can't use those for anything. So I think it's a good idea. And I wanted to go back. Apparently, I had mute button problems. When you mentioned this call with these nations, that's just an investor call. That's just a guy trying to drum up capital for his startup. So
yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he's looking for more money for his slush fund is what he's looking for. Peter says helicopter tours for $5 says, what's the likelihood Ukrainians turn into the Mujahideen 2.0 and blame everything on Americans? Will CIA trained Ukrainian spies turn their trade craft into our people out of a sense of abandonment. Okay, so here's the deal, right? Whenever you have a big bloody war, go ahead, Joe.
Well, no, you're on the right track. I was just going to say that Stan raised this issue on like week 3 of the war. That's exactly what was going to happen. So anyway, carry on. You're on the right track.
No, so here's the thing, right? The problem with the Mujahideen is that there's nothing in Afghanistan for people to do except for fighting and farming. That's it. That's all there is. There's no economic industry outside of the most basic stuff. And the other side of
there's no tech sector in Afghanistan?
There's nothing. It's farming and fighting, Joe. You know the deal. But the other piece of that is the Mujahideen was not an Afghan phenomenon. It was a phenomenon of external influence, right? You know, the Taliban is an actual Afghan / Pakistani / kind of.
I was going to say they invaded from Pakistan, so they're not entirely Afghan.
Well, I know, but my point is that it is a regional kind of. It came from the region, is what I'm getting at. I'm putting Pakistan and Afghanistan kind of in the same basket. You know, that being said, anytime you have a war like this, you're always going to have some percentage of the people who are left holding the bag afterwards or want to fight somebody. And so this is where your soldiers of fortune for the next 20 years are going to come out of, right? You're going to have Ukrainian and Russian fucking mercenaries all over the world for the next 20 years essentially,
and Georgian and Brit. I mean, look at who all serves the Georgian Legion.
Exactly. And the people who came from other countries are more likely to be part of that kind of diaspora of violence. Now, a country like Ukraine has a lot of great opportunities. Like if this war stops and foreign investment starts coming back in, and it gets their mineral extraction and it gets their industries up and moving again, they've got more than enough stuff to do to keep all these people in Ukraine busy. So they don't need to be fighting. That being said, they have a third less men in the ages of 30 to 45 now than they had before the beginning of the war. Almost a third of that population. And who are the people who work in your machine shops and work in mines and all this kind of stuff? It's not like 18-year-olds so much. It's guys, kind of grizzled veterans that have been doing it for a while in that 30 to 45 range. And these are the people that they are going to be missing.
Let's talk briefly about this. I like the way you worded that, diaspora of violence, and what they are currently turning their attention to now that they're getting cut off. Here we have an image of a lot of tires with a Ukrainian saying, "Dear Americans, we suggest starting to collect used tires. They'll come in handy. We'll explain later." Gee, wonder what he meant by that.
Watcher, don't make the people guess. Go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, he's essentially calling for those who disagree with eternal and perpetual funding for corruption in Ukraine to be necklaced, which is where they take an old car tire, throw it around your neck, fill it full of gasoline, and light it on fire. Came out of South Africa, actually, courtesy of Nelson Mandela and his wife.
Yeah, it's a lot of terrible things came out of that country. Yeah, so we're gonna be dealing with the ripple effect of this war for the next 20 years, and I appreciate the fact that you liked my diaspora of violence. Even Cowboy here says diaspora of violence. I'm totally stealing that one. That sounds like maybe a metal band or something, yeah.
You're right, it does.
Or an album. It's a good name.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, or like the new version of Generation X in wrestling or something,
Yeah. Maybe that needs to be like a Doorkickers Diaspora of Violence. That needs to be like the title for my next Doorkickers book. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Anyway, so let's talk about the mineral extraction piece of this thing. And so, is this a deal that could actually kind of bring this whole thing to a close? Zelensky said he will soon sign a minerals agreement with the United States, potentially worth hundreds of billions of dollars, while the White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said on Friday that this move is part of U.S. President Donald Trump's effort to end the war with Russia and deal with the American leader says will be recoup of billions in military aid. Here's the bottom line. Zelensky is going to sign that deal, and you will see that in the very short term. Waltz said during remarks to the Conservative Political Action, CPAC. Let's see. Let's go down here. Today, teams from Ukraine and the U.S. are working on a draft agreement between our governments. This is an agreement that can strengthen our relations, and the key is to work out the details to ensure its effectiveness. I look forward to the outcome as a just result. Here's the thing, Joe, if I remember correctly, most of those minerals that we would probably be interested in are located like east of the Dnieper River.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, they are. To the west, you don't have that much. It's more population and more mountainous. But yes.
Yeah, and off of Odessa, that's another area where there's some oil and natural gas for exploration, for exploitation that they could do. I'll be honest with you, Joe. If the Russians and the Ukrainians get their mineral extraction sectors like completely honed in on this within the first year after the war ends, I'll be honest with you, they'll be making so much money hand over fist that they won't want to fight anymore. Hopefully we can get a pro-business pragmatist in as president of Ukraine, somebody who is proud to be Ukrainian, but at the same time understands the shared history with Russia and, knows that their future lies with trying to squash all of this back and forth between the two. Now, Joe, no three people hated anybody as more as the Bosnians, the Croatians, and the Serbians did back in the 90s. Yet there's all kinds of let bygones be bygones going on in that region. Croatia is now a member of NATO. Serbia has,
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Well, no, I mean, it's mostly where you see is in Kosovo, right? I mean,
I'm going to disagree.
Okay, I mean, I'm just saying.
Is that not part of the same place?
Well, Kosovo is part of Albania, right?
We came pretty darn close a few months ago. Yeah, but we came pretty darn close to that a while ago with the Serbian police trying to impose their will upon the Kosovars. So
yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's not that it's not that.
But I get your point. I get your point.
Is that I see? Yeah. So basically, Kosovo is south of Serbia, on the other side of Montenegro from Bosnia and Croatia. So it's kind of like Bosnia, Croatia, and Serbia aren't duking it out, but down there in Kosovo, that's where it's kind of it's still an issue because Kosovo is was it technically part of Serbia at the time? I can't remember. My memory of this whole thing.
Yeah, but it didn't want to be. All of them were part of Yugoslavia, and that's where the problem came from.
Yeah, and then you've got Northern Macedonia, which they're kind of talk about the devil in the deep blue sea. They got Greece to the south, and they've got Serbia to the north. But for the most part, they want to stay out of it. But my point is that no people have hated people more than Bosnia, Croatia, and Serbia, and those three countries, especially in the area where those three countries kind of come together, there there is cross-border trade. There is probably people married on both sides of the borders. are there hard feelings? Sure there are, because, when you go to war with people, you don't just forget. But at the same time, I mean, we nuked Japan. Japan, Pearl Harbored us and we nuked them, but look at how close we are with Japan now. So it's not that you can't get over this shit. It's just you gotta work it out and have practical reasons to actually deal with each other. All right, let me jump down further into this. Pending a deal would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's deposits of critical minerals, including aluminum, gallium, titanium. Ukraine possesses materials that are essential components to microchips, electric vehicle batteries, and have significant military value. Trump has been touting this as a way to reduce the burden for supporting Ukraine. Basically saying that what we gave them exceeded $175 billion. So evidently what they've talked about is creating basically a fund where they would start mining stuff, and 50% goes into the fund, and that fund, it would be the $500 billion of that fund would then go to the U.S. Which, that would be a pretty good chunk of change to get back. But the problem is I also don't want to spend a fucking more dime on Ukraine. I don't want us to underwrite any of the stuff that happens there. I want somebody else to pay for it, but I want American companies to be involved to be able to get their piece of it as well. Aluminium, yes.
If we're gonna go there,
it's
aluminum. It's aluminum.
And I know
people who called it aluminium were a newspaper editor, and for some reason, the British alone ran with that pronunciation.
If I remember correctly, isn't there a spelling difference?
Yes. Yeah, they added an I for some god awful, unforeseen reason. Just the British, literally no one else.
Yeah.
Ask a Brit for Tylenol, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. They'll say, "You mean paracetamol?"
All right. And then, oh, by the way, when it comes to the front, Ukraine continues to lose inches and meters every day. So. All right, guys. Oh, speaking of minerals, Joe, did you hear about this? The president of the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, said, "Hey, Donald Trump, I'll basically give you rights to mine all of our cobalt and all of our minerals if you come in and and you save us from the fucking M23 guerrillas." He's like, I said, I want to start my own American Belt and Road here in Congo.
Essentially, what he said is please, Daddy, please, Banana Republic me.
Colonize me a little harder, Daddy, is what he meant to say. Joe, isn't that the most ironic thing ever? Though it's like the Congo wants America to colonize it to save it from something else.
Well, here's the thing. I would be behind it, but not because of M23. My current ire is for the Ugandan rebel group that came across last week and beheaded 70 Christians. Those were not the M23 rebels who do enough bad on their own. They didn't go out and kill the Christians. An Al-Shabaab splinter group from Uganda did.
Yeah, that's right. It was a Al-Shabaab splinter group. I mean, and that's just that's the thing that most people don't they kind of forget is that there are a significant amount of ISIS and Al-Qaeda aligned Islamist groups all throughout Africa, not just up in the north, all throughout Africa, going all the way down to South Africa. Where they're using South African ports to run guns into Zambia? I can't remember. Mozambique, in that area. So,
we refer to Zambia by its proper name of North Rhodesia.
Yeah. By the way, are the Lord's Resistance Army, are they still kicking around in Uganda? Speaking of Uganda.
They are still a thing. Yeah. Well, they're throughout all of Central Africa.
I wonder if we can. I wonder if we could get them to fight. Get old Joseph Kony to take the fight up against Al-Shabaab.
I don't want Joseph Kony anywhere near our side at all.
I know, right?
Unless he's hanging from a tree by his genitals. No.
Here's the thing. I don't know. I part of me likes the idea of standing back like the Japanese guy in Godzilla and says, "Let them fight," but only if we can drop a J-dam on Kony at the end of the fight. There's probably hardly anybody worse than Kony in that region. And the fact that he does it under the moniker, like some twisted version of Christianity, makes it even worse.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen? Let's go around the horn. Joe, predictions for the week?
More unhinged actions from the left. The massive buffoonery out in front of the Luigi Mangione trial should tell you all where things are headed in America. They're worshiping this guy as some sort of a hero. He's not. He's a cold-blooded killer. So I would just watch for more ridiculousness from the left. Every time Trump or Musk does something, they get a little bit crazier.
Yeah, they definitely live inside their heads rent free at this point, especially Musk. He absolutely drives the left batty, and even if I don't agree with what he says, I have to laugh at it because he just absolutely is owning them on the daily basis.
And he used to be an absolute darling of the American left.
Oh, 100%.
They used to love him. So
it's almost like they'll stab you in the back if you don't do exactly what they tell you to do. Funny how that
weird
works.
Or they'll shoot you in the ear.
Yeah. All right. Watcher predictions.
Yes, I predict that the Holy Pontiff will pass. His final disposition, in my opinion, not nearly as assured as many people in the church seem to think it is. And then I believe that all the cardinals will gather, and shortly afterwards, a puff of rainbow smoke will be seen coming out of the pillar, thus signifying yet another gay pope.
I'm hoping for I'm praying to Jesus to smite the papists and let them bring in Cardinal Dolan as the next pope. I think that would be a riot. Talk about smiting people. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, it would be excommunications right and left.
They ought to give it a true test. Give it a true test of who's the man of God, and let Kirill run for pope.
Wait, the irony is that you put someone like Dolan in there, and I swear to God, you would have a papal schism. You would probably have an anti-pope, come up from a leftist anti-pope. Yeah. All right.
I also finally predict that many very shady figures in America will be extremely nervous this week. I think Adam Schiff in particular will be probably start squealing round about now. I'd assume that if I logged on to Twitter, he's probably squealing as we speak.
Speaking of people squealing in the near future, my understanding is Trump supposedly got something spicy in store on the 4th of March. He's doing an address to Congress, both houses of Congress, and all network televisions are having to So I get the feeling that he's going to talk about potentially, the kind of layout charges and for large patterns of conspiracy and sedition and potentially
beware the Ides of March.
That's the next day. And yeah, if he announces he's going after all these people, I mean, what do they have to lose at that point, Joe?
That's what I keep saying, man. That's when they start yanking it all down.
All right. Hey, guys, that's all I got for the show today. I appreciate you guys rolling with me. Chat, you were amazing. Joe, Watcher, appreciate you guys holding it down. Joe, safe trip to you, brother. I know you're on the road, so glad no issues there. Hope that you make it back to Montana safe and sound. Unfortunately, it'll probably be, like cold as balls when you get there, but, hey, at least it's home, right?
It was actually 60 degrees there yesterday, so I'm excited about it.
So the snow is in full-on snow melt mode, right?
What was funny was we were sitting with a bunch of the guys looking at the weather on Saturday morning, and he goes, "It's 58 in Missoula. Joe, get that woman on the phone and let me know what she did to the weather." It was very funny.
Our Air Force weatherman tells us that he guarantees that they will be in the 50s next week here in Korea. So
nice.
Hopefully by the end of this week. So we don't know. All right. Guys, that's all I got. Thank you very much. Watcher Joe, thank you. Chat, thank you. And if you haven't done it already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Let people know that the Council on Future Conflicts is a good place for, kind of down-to-earth information about what's happening in the world without too much snootiness or snobbery. You guys take care, and as always, stay safe.